Hi there, Gracie Corb again. Wanted to add a little something to the how I got the nickname Machine Gun. While I was in the Hall of Justice jail in LA County, uh, which consisted of two-man cells with 6 men in them, uh, an extra area for the men to sleep at night between the cells and the walls. And the prisoners did things once in a while. Yeah, I mean, I played lots of pinochle and scat and things like that, but we also held a mock trial when I first got in there, and I got my paperwork from the courts, which set out the details of what I was arrested for. The cell next to us as Quincy Jones was in there. Now, I don't know that this is the Quincy Jones that is the producer. He said he was. They called him by his name many times, and he read Variety. But, why would he want to admit that he was in jail fighting a possession rap for heroin? Anyway, we held our mock trial, and he was the one that named me Machine Gun. And my pinochle partner was my lawyer, and not in real life, just in jail life. And he did a pretty piss poor job of representing me, so he could have been a real attorney, I guess. But Quincy nicknamed me Machine Gun and sentenced me to 20 years and shook his head. Said, "You're too young for this, but there you go. That's what you get." Okay, well, of course, as it turned out, even though I agreed to do a year in the county jail, uh, I didn't get any jail time. I got sentenced to time served for the 3.5 months I did waiting for bail to be set because they said I was a threat to society. So, once again, white privilege stepped out. If I had been a black man or a Mexican or an Asian, I would have been sentenced to 10 years at least, plus a huge fine and like that. But because I was young and white and I went through a group therapy session and the psychiatrist running the session was friends with the judge apparently because he wrote a nice letter to him telling him why I shouldn't be incarcerated, meaning that if I was incarcerated, I would probably become a career criminal, and if I wasn't, I wouldn't. And the judge agreed, even though my attorney objected just as loudly as the DA did when I wasn't sentenced to some jail time. Um, that we did our mock trial, and everybody there knew what had happened. They all knew, you know, what I had done before I ever got there. They knew, in other words, they knew about the police cars being blown up. You know, it's something that the prisoners had my press clippings cut out and glued to their walls. They all assumed that I was black because the Black Panthers were, while not directly involved, uh, the my friend Penn was one of the organizers of the Black Panthers in Southern California. So that being said, that's how I got the nickname Machine Gun. Um, I met some people. I learned how to do writs while I was there, even though I still didn't know what a writ was. I did some writs when we were in the Parker Center, which at that time was a new jail. The They didn't have any toilet paper for us for 2 days, and 8 people in an 8-man cell with no toilet paper is not a pretty sight. So we had a federal prisoner who was a teenager that had escaped from teenage prison in Indiana and stole a car and drove to California. He was doing time for being a car thief. And Yeah, he was a car thief. His eyes lit up when he talked about different cars and things. He was definitely a car thief. So anyway, I used his court papers and drew us up a writ, trying to order them to provide us with to give us toilet paper. He when he went to court, he took that paper that I drew up, gave it to his lawyer. His lawyer asked him if it was true, and he said it was, and he showed a copy or showed the original actually to the prosecuting attorney, who kind of went, well, whatever. And he gave it to the judge. The judge asked if it was true. He swore the prisoner and had him sign the paper, making it an affidavit. Told him the paperwork was well done, and he said, well, I didn't do it. And he said, well, who did? And he said, well, one of the other prisoners. And he goes, who? And he said, Gary Corbett. And he goes, well, tell him he did a good job. And he said, okay. He says, and is he in your cell? And he said, yes, he is. He goes, fine. I'll see him this afternoon. I'll tell him myself. So, prisoner makes his way back, and you'd have to be into the LA jail system to realize that making your way back is an extremely long, time-consuming ordeal, because they have a couple of hundred buses every day that they run full of prisoners to different jails all over the county. And so when he got back, it was dinner time. A little late for dinner, so he didn't get it. He got the traditional orange and a bologna sandwich. So he came in and said, well, did we get toilet paper? We said, no, we didn't. He goes, well, the judge said that he would see us today. And just then there was a commotion. All of a sudden, all these U.S. Marshals, LA County deputies showed up. The judge called the kid out by name, called me out by name, and he asked the prisoner, he said, do you guys have toilet paper yet? And he said, no, sir, we don't. And he goes, okay, here. And he had bought some toilet paper for us. Then he turned and he says, now I direct the sheriff of this county to provide toilet paper to everybody in this jail. Everybody in this jail gets a roll of toilet paper now. And the deputy scurried off with U.S. Marshals with him, because he didn't let, from the minute he walked in the front door, he stationed a U.S. Marshal at every stop so that nobody could warn anybody else that he was coming. And he did an inspection of the jail, starting with our cell. After it was all said and done, they provided forms for the prisoners to fill out, with just check marking the boxes and writing your name, rather than having to draw a writ up. And because the writ was time consuming. It was also written, part of it was written on toilet paper, or not toilet paper, not writing paper, but envelopes, I think it was. Anyway, after it was all said and done, and they were all gone, we all got our toilet paper. When I had first gotten into that cell, I wasn't there 15 minutes when a trustee came up and asked me if I was Gary Corbett, and I said yes. And he goes, huh, interesting, thought you were black. And I said, well, no, I'm white. He goes, well, okay. This is from a friend who has your press clippings. And he handed me some hashish. And I said, well, this is great, but I don't have a pipe. He goes, I'll be right back. He goes away. He comes back and hands me a pipe made out of aluminum foil and matches. I thank him. Everybody in the cell, of course, wanted to know who the hell I was and why was I being delivered drugs as soon as I walked in the door. So I kind of ran the story down to him, who I was, what I was in jail for, and all that. We all smoked the hash, had a great time. I ended up shaving my head over that. So when that was all done, this guy shows back up and brings me some more hash and a pipe and more matches. And so we spoke that up. That was, like I said, that's when I shaved my head and got in trouble for that and got moved over to the Hall of Justice jail as sanctions against me for being a bastard to change my appearance while in the custody of the sheriff's office. One of their crime stopping things is you're not supposed to change your appearance. So, and when I went over there, because everybody always thought I was black, they tried to put me in the black militant tank, in which my life expectancy was about between 3 to 5 minutes. And it would not have been pretty. My crime partner, Penn, had been caught by then, and he told me, he says, "You can't stay here. I can't protect you here. You have no life expectancy here." And the guard heard him. And the guard looks at me and he goes, "Actually, he's right." He said, "This isn't right. I'll change this." And he showed me my name tag, and it was written in pink, which was indicating that I was of African descent. Asians and Mexicans were blue. White people were white. So I got moved to the tank that held the cells that was for celebrities. Um, Other tanks that we could see had race riots about once a week, and people were hauled out, taken to the doctor fairly regularly with cuts and slices and shit from homemade shivs and things like that. Nothing like that happened in our tank. Um, but I just wanted to add that because how I got my nickname wasn't really well spelled out in how I got my nickname. So here we go. Thank you. Please subscribe, comment, say hello, whatever.